I really don't care what happens to her at all. I don't care. Like, everybody they tiptoe around with this social media. But what y'all don't get is that it be real consequence for y'all little flexes, y'all quick flexes for $300 that you need. It be consequences.
Nobody saw it coming. 1 minute, voices were raised. The next, Teyana hit the ground right in the middle of the chaos. The neighbors who'd peeked over fences before, just to catch a glimpse of the famous couple and their polished smiles, never imagined they'd be the ones calling 911 on a night that turned the whole street upside down. They swear they heard glass shattering first, a sound so sharp it cut through the warm air, followed by a scream that didn't sound like anger anymore but pure panic. And then, before anyone could piece the shouting together, the sirens came, red and blue lights bouncing off garden walls, turning a private meltdown into a neighborhood headline. Nobody watching from their windows thought it would get this dark. Not like this. And what really happened behind that fence, under that porch light, in front of people who'd come for drinks but stayed for a train wreck, is messier than any rumor you've seen online. It all began like so many family gatherings do, the ones that start tense but polite, with smiles that don't reach tired eyes and side glances that say more than words ever could. Iman and Aaron stood on opposite ends of Teyana's backyard, acting like they could share the same air without exploding. But those who know them know they can't. It only took one sharp comment, maybe about who loved Teyana more, maybe about who ruined her first, to light the match. Witnesses say Aaron leaned in too close, Iman shoved the hand away, and the shouting snapped through the garden like a whip. Teyana, stuck between them as always, tried to hush them both, hands up, voice trembling, begging them not to do this here, not tonight. But the words bounced off them like stones off brick. Neighbors heard the crash, something heavy breaking near the patio, a bottle maybe, a vase. And right after, Teyana's yell cut through the rising noise, a sound that made people freeze mid-whisper. She stepped in, trying to push them apart, and for a second it worked. Their rage flickered at the sight of her pleading. But rage never stays still for long. She got one more word out, a shaky stop, before her legs buckled and her eyes rolled back. 1 second she was standing. The next, she hit the ground like every secret she'd kept finally knocked her flat. The moment she collapsed, the shouting didn't even stop right away. Someone ran for their phone, fingers shaking as they dialed 911, voice cracking as they told dispatchers that a woman was down, that something was really wrong. Meanwhile, Iman and Aaron were still at it, pointing, cursing, dragging up old wounds in front of guests who'd come for drinks and stayed for a horror show. A few friends tried to lift Teyana's head, brushing hair from her face as if that could wake her up. But the real wake-up came with the wail of sirens. Red and blue lights bounced off the back fence before anyone opened the gate. Neighbors leaned out bedroom windows, phones in hand, recording the flicker of uniforms pushing through a crowd that suddenly looked very small under all that noise and light. Cops barked for space, pushing back guests with hands up, eyes wide like they'd just realized they were in way over their heads. EMTs slipped through, kneeling in fresh-cut grass that still smelled sweet under all the shouting. One of them checked her pulse, whispering to another that she was breathing but out cold. And right then, right when they lifted her onto the stretcher, the screaming finally cracked. A hush fell as Aman's voice dropped to a broken mumble. He looked at her like he didn't know how she got there. But Aaron kept going, yelling that this was all on Aman, that she'd be fine if it weren't for him. That was enough for one cop to step in and shove him back, barking that if he didn't shut up, he'd spend the night in the back of a cruiser too. When Teyana's stretcher disappeared through the gate, the backyard turned from a war zone to a crime scene without yellow tape. Iman's chest heaved with a rage that didn't have anywhere left to go, so he turned it on Aaron, barking that he was poison, that he'd been worming into Teyana's head for months, feeding lies just to break what little they had left. Aaron didn't flinch, he spat it right back, saying he was the only one telling her the truth, that Aman's control was the real poison. Friends hovered at the edge, arms folded, glancing at the broken glass glittering under porch lights like fresh-cut diamonds that cost too much to replace. Police had to step in more than once when words almost turned to hands again. One officer stood close enough to grab a wrist if either man so much as leaned forward. Meanwhile, some guests slipped through the side gate, pretending they'd just come to drop something off. Faces low, not wanting to be the next clip in a shaky backyard video that was already on its way to the internet. And while the shouting ebbed, the blame didn't. It wrapped around that yard like smoke, promising that this was just the first round of a fight that wasn't anywhere close to finished. By dawn, the rumors were everywhere. Some claimed it was just stress, Weeks of juggling two men who wanted to own her in different ways, pulling her thin while she tried to hold herself together for a world that only wanted her smiles. Others whispered about darker things, that there'd been signs for months that Teyana was breaking down behind the scenes, nights when her voice cracked behind closed doors and mornings when the makeup hid more than just tired eyes. Her team, smooth and polished, pushed out a statement by breakfast. Teyana is stable, resting comfortably. But that line only made people dig harder. If it was just exhaustion, why were there cops in her yard? Why did Aaron look ready to swing? Why did Iman's shirt have glass shards clinging to it when he walked out the gate behind the stretcher? Close friends didn't help. Cryptic posts popped up like weeds, captions about broken hearts and lessons learned too late. The people who'd hugged her on red carpets were the same ones dropping single-word tweets. Enough. And somewhere between the silence and the rumors, everyone's asking the same thing. When she wakes up, who's she gonna blame? Who's she gonna save? Or maybe, just maybe, she'll be done saving anyone but herself. While Teyana slept in a hospital bed, machines quietly marking every second with sterile beeps, the internet was wide awake and doing what it does best, tearing everything apart. Before the 4 drip had even finished its first cycle, grainy clips had already hit every social media feed. The footage wasn't high quality, but it didn't need to be. It was raw enough to feel real. The sound of glass crashing to the floor, the sudden collapse of Teyana's knees, and the unmistakable split second where Iman's expression changed, from rage to realization that she wasn't getting up. That moment alone was clipped, slowed down, shared, and debated like it was a scene from a movie. But this wasn't fiction. This was mess in real time. As always, the internet chose sides, loud and fast. One half turned on Iman with the kind of fury only the betrayed can channel. They said he'd pushed her too far, asked for too much, demanded perfection from someone barely holding herself together. They pulled quotes from old interviews, past court statements, and out-of-context live streams, anything that could be used to show a pattern of pressure and emotional damage. They weren't just angry. They were certain that whatever happened that night, it had been building for years. They blamed him for every time she looked exhausted, every time she said "I'm fine" in a tone that didn't match her eyes. The other half went after Aaron. He was the intruder, the one who showed up uninvited, wearing a smug grin and a crisp shirt like he hadn't lit half the fires himself. To them, he wasn't a rescuer. He was a saboteur. They dragged up party footage, public spats, vague tweets, and deleted photos. They said he knew exactly what buttons to press and when. They painted him as a man who got off on the chaos, who poked at an already fragile situation just to see what would happen. Some said he came looking for a scene, and he got exactly what he wanted. The meme pages took over in seconds. Freeze frames of Iman's panicked face were slapped next to Aaron's raised finger, with Teyana's limp hand slipping through someone's grasp in the background. Captions were cruel. Comments were worse. Pain was content, and people consumed it without blinking. Old videos of Teyana surfaced again, this time with a new lens. Clips where she quietly said "I'm tired" were dissected like secret messages. Moments where she laughed without smiling were turned into evidence. Her silence was no longer neutral. It was proof of everything. And with every passing hour, the conspiracy theories multiplied. Some said she staged it all, that she collapsed on purpose to shift public sympathy. Others claimed it wasn't a breakdown, it was a reset, a necessary pause to escape the noise and come back in control. And then there were those who swore she knew more than anyone had let on. That behind her quiet, she held secrets big enough to tear down both men completely. Behind the screens, PR teams were in chaos. Iman's representatives were scrubbing timelines, issuing vague statements about privacy and respect. Aaron's people denied everything, ducking reporters and resharing photos of him smiling with fans. Teyana's camp said nothing, no comments, no posts, just silence. And that silence only made people listen harder. Through it all, one truth cut through the rumors, edits, and theories. The world was watching. Watching Teyana sleep behind white curtains and hospital walls. Watching the men at war over her story. Watching every new clip, every old post, every word that might hint at what happens next. And no matter how loud the noise gets, everyone is waiting for the next piece to fall. Because this story isn't over. Not even close. Behind locked doors and locked phones, both camps are digging in for war. Insiders say Iman's people are pressing for charges, trespassing, harassment, maybe more if they can prove Aaron crossed a line that night. Aaron's camp fires right back, swearing he showed up to talk but left fighting for his name when Iman pushed him to the edge. In the middle, Teyana's silence feels like a bomb nobody wants to touch. because when she talks, someone's story is going to break in half. Some say she's done, that when she opens her eyes, she'll see two men fighting over a crown she never asked to wear and toss it in the dirt for them both to choke on. Others swear she's already chosen. One camp's got receipts ready to drop the second she nods. And if the cops decide one push or one threat counts as a crime, this brawl goes from backyard gossip to a courtroom circus the second charges land. All anyone knows for sure is this: the next time these three stand on the same patch of grass, it won't be for a toast or a party or a family photo. It'll be to finish what they started, or to watch it all burn for good.
So now it's on you.
Whose side are you on? The man who lost his grip, the man who poked the bear, or the woman who hit the ground carrying more secrets than anyone's ready to hear? Drop your theory in the comments. Who's the villain, who's the victim, and who's about to flip the whole story upside down when they finally speak? Hit that like if you want every leak, every message, every piece of this mess the second it cracks open. And if you haven't yet, you know what to do. Subscribe and stay locked in, because this isn't just a fight anymore. This is a bomb that went off in a backyard and left glass shards in the grass and cops at the door. And when Teyana wakes up, someone's world is going to come crashing down, one ugly truth at a time.